Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Record. My guest is a returning guest to the show. His name is John Johnson, and I have teased him about his very unusual name. He's the treasurer of the National Coast Guard Museum Association. So first of all, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Sean.
You are
Nice
you're a fascinating man to talk to, off the air, on the air. And we have to go back a ways because the last time you were on the show, it was in regards to OpSale, which was 2012. Talk about that experience.
Hard to believe it's 3 years away and 3 years in the rearview mirror, but it was a fabulous experience. We had the highlight of the whole week was, or the whole weekend was, to ride in on Eagle under full sail coming into New London Harbor, and it was a real trip with the governor on board and Senator Blumenthal on board and Congressman Courtney, and it was a real treat.
Was it successful overall?
We think it was extremely successful, and
it almost didn't happen, right?
Well, it almost didn't happen because the national organization had a tough time pulling it all together, but each one of the ports was able to put OpSale on their shoulders, and we pulled it off. It was a great event.
And I also think it was great that, at least in New London, it was in conjunction with SailFest, which made the whole event a huge event.
It did. And the nice part about it involved all the people of New London and southeastern Connecticut, not just the sailing enthusiasts.
Other communities were involved too.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you are the treasurer of the National Coast Guard Museum Association. Before we get to that, we mentioned OpSale. I'd like to know the path that brought you from that to where you are now, because there's a few years that we haven't chatted on the air. So what was your path like?
Sean, it's an interesting piece of history. In 1998, the National Coast Guard Foundation, which is based out of Stonington, Connecticut, undertook to do this project to raise $100 million, at that time with only $30 million, to build a museum. And after experiencing the difficulty of raising even $30 million, a couple of years later, the leadership of the foundation said, we can't do this. And so there were three of us, our chairman, Jimmy Coleman, myself, and Dick Grahn, our secretary, that decided that we would form our own 501c3, a private organization, and we called ourselves the National Coast Guard Museum Association, Inc. And we are a private, not-for-profit organization, and it is our intention to raise enough funds to build a museum. We'll build a museum in downtown New London, and we will then turn it over to the Coast Guard in its entirety at that point in time.
Back when this idea popped up in the 90s, in the late 90s, what was the environment like? What was the economy like then? Because if you look now, just recently, you were fighting through a recession, right?
Well, as fate would have it, in 1999, if we had gotten the go-ahead, or even in 2000, if we'd gotten the go-ahead, we probably would have had enough money be able to be raised within 2 or 3 years.
Really? Wow.
The Coast Guard was rebuilding itself, was rebuilding all its assets, so all of the defense community was lined up. They wanted to help the Coast Guard to build this museum. And as it turned out, we didn't have a site. The commandant at the time was not happy with the Fort Trumbull site and just did not want to take us down to Fort Trumbull. So through two commandants, Admiral Collins and Admiral Allen, nothing happened. So we were a dormant organization. We all stayed together. We all met once a year.
What was wrong with the Trumbull site in the Commandant's opinion?
The Commandant Collins told us that he did not want to go down to Fort Trumbull and be the only attraction down there.
Okay.
And so that carried through. And then Thad Allen had Katrina. He had to deal with Katrina, and he was much more of an operational type of guy. And so he was very much involved with the operations of the Coast Guard, not the vision of the Coast Guard, not having a museum. So it was when Admiral Papp stood up, and he's a great historian himself, loves history, and he almost in his opening remarks said, "Under my watch, we will build a museum," and that's the reason why we had the ceremonial groundbreaking last year in May, so that we could give him the honor of having the vision to select a site and to build a museum under his watch.
How is it that this site worked out?
Well, it was.
And where is the site?
And the site is in downtown New London. It's on the other side of the railroad tracks, behind the railroad station.
Okay.
So the biggest issue we had to access that particular site, we had to build a bridge, and the bridge was going to start on the east side of Water Street, go straight up, go across the railroad tracks, access a new ferry terminal to the north, the museum to the south, and then it would have a separate elevator that would go down to the northbound tracks for Amtrak. But the former owners of the railroad station refused to give us permission to build that bridge on their property. Rightfully so. It wasn't our property. So our chairman, who is a man of very substantial wealth, Jimmy Coleman, just bought the station.
Right.
Bought the station 10 days ago.
That was big news around here,
Huge
too.
news. Huge news for New London. Huge news for the previous owners, and certainly gave us the credibility and gave us a building on Water Street that allowed us to be the front door for the National Coast Guard Museum campus.
There'll be no adverse effects from this changeover in ownership of Union Station as far as trains coming through, though, right?
Absolutely not. The train
Okay.
is going to be one of its main functions will always be an Amtrak stop.
Okay.
And a Shoreline East stop.
Okay.
So,
But what it does is give you the ability to be able to sort of not annex the property adjacent there, might not be the appropriate word, but allow you to do what you need to do that the previous owners wouldn't allow you to do.
Absolutely, Sean. And you know, one of our issues has been brought up on a constant basis. We're building 54,000 feet. That's not big for a museum, but it's big for us. I mean, it was 54,000. It's going to cost a lot of money. And a lot of people have said, well, where are you going to expand to? You're on a little small site and all the rest of it. But buying this railroad station allows us to, if in the future we need to, allows us to expand to the north. We can put in another glass addition on the railroad station and end up with another 30 or 40,000 feet.
So it's basically right next to City Pier, correct?
Right next to City Pier, right where Eagle will be birthed. Should be home ported in New London at City Pier, which will be an added attraction. And you know, the captain of Eagle, West Pulver, just loves that site and loves being downtown. And,
That makes more sense, doesn't it, than the Trumbull site, because you are downtown, you're in the metropolis, as it were. There are other things to do. You don't want to just be the only thing that people have to go out of their way to go to, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, without question. And for all of the merchants downtown, and I happen to be one of those merchants, it's inspiring for us because it gives people another reason to come to New London. And while they're in New London, we know they'll use the restaurants, they'll use the art galleries, they'll use the retail stores. So.
And summertime in downtown New London is very vibrant.
Oh.
You know, I mean, we've had this conversation, and not to knock other local cities, but like, for example, Norwich, sometimes you have a tendency to see a lot more boarded up storefronts in downtown than you should see. New London is been revitalized. It's very active in the summer. Friends of ours like Barbara Neff do so much in the community to just get everybody involved and to just bring people to downtown.
Exactly, you know, and you know, I don't know whether you know about the declaration by Governor Malloy, but Governor Malloy has declared that the summer of 2015 is to celebrate the Coast Guard summer in Connecticut, and it all coincides with the 225th anniversary of the Coast Guards and 100 years for the Coast Guard Academy in its present site. So it'll be a very, very historic summer this summer.
Absolutely, and the city had something going for it back when you saw cruise ships pull in here. The fact that they were pulling in here, there's something to this area, and that would be, obviously it makes sense for the Coast Guard Museum to be in the same town as the Coast Guard Academy, obviously,
Sure
right?
does. Sure, it makes absolute sense. You know, when we were building it, people wanted to know what kind of visitorship we were going to have. And when it was originally designated to go to Fort Trumbull, the attendance that was, they judged that the attendance, they speculated that the attendance of visitorship in the first couple of years would be 250,000 people a year. downtown, they are speculating now that the visitorship will be 500,000 people a year.
Wow.
And that is significant for a city the size of New London to have 500,000 people come in here to view the museum.
Would the trouble site have granted you more land? Would there more land availability there, or
Yeah,
not?
there was no question.
Okay.
It was a bigger site. It was a more comfortable site. But with engineering today, and we have world famous architects who's designing it. Payette out of Boston. If you look at Payette on the internet, they design and build in China, in Russia. They just recently did a big addition at Conn College, so they're local too. So they're a fabulous firm and wonderful people to work with.
People, when they hear the word museum, might think that it's a building that you walk into, look around, and see stuff in cases. But you got to understand, this is the Coast Guard Museum, so explain how different it's going to be.
Well, it's going to be such a different experience. It'll be an experience like even better than the World War II Museum down in New Orleans. This will have interactive exhibits. For example, we can put a family or kids on board a helicopter and do a drop into the ocean to rescue. We'll be able to. We'll have a deck on a ship, a simulated ship, where the kids can go and drive the ship through the waves, 20, 30-foot waves.
Wow, that's great. Sounds like an amusement park almost,
It will be, and the best thing about a museum like this is that kids will want to come back. They'll want to experience it again.
By themselves, but also in field trip formats with schools will be coming down.
Oh my God! And one of the things that we haven't emphasized, but we need to let the public know, museum is free.
Yeah.
There is no charge to go into this museum. A lot of the museums around here have a charge, but this has no charge. And so
How is it funded?
It'll be funded. There is an appropriation already on the books in Congress for $4 million a year to run the museum as an entity. They haven't had to draw down on it yet, obviously, but it'll be funded by that. We will continue as a committee to probably try to raise money for an endowment. So that's the ultimate goal. But we got to build it first.
Right. And speaking of which, when you're talking about this kind of museum, is there anything that has to be done with the Thames River also to accommodate anything?
Well, we're going to build out over the water a little bit,
Right.
so we'll have to put piles to go to bedrock for the piles to support it. But the most important thing about the Thames River is that we want to be part of that whole Thames River Heritage Park, and we're very much in favor of having the park people create a ferry service that will connect Fort Griswold with Fort Trumbull, with the City of New London, with the Nautilus Museum, with our museum, and that's in the works. We think that's going to probably show up this summer. That's what we're hoping.
Weren't they toying with the idea of a back and forth Groton New London ferry that was doing it for a short while?
Indeed.
Yeah.
They tried it during one of the festivals during our Connecticut Maritime Heritage Festival last fall, and it was terribly successful. They had over 2,000 people in 2 days ride the ferry, so that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Let's take a break and come back. You want to give out the website for people to go and learn more?
Sure. The website is www.coastguardmuseum.org.
All right. Short break and we'll come back. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest is John Johnson, the treasurer of the National Coast Guard Museum Association. It's here. It's going to happen, John. It's going to happen since 1998. It is going to happen. We're going to have a museum here in a great spot right in downtown New London. And there's so much more to talk about. One of the big things, and this was a story that you mentioned off the air, was the potential for celebrating the president's birthday in conjunction with the museum. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we have proposed the idea to the president's office that we would celebrate his birthday, which is August 4th, and which is the same date as the anniversary of the Coast Guard, and that we would celebrate it with a picnic on the front lawn of the White House. and it's received quite some interest, and we're looking forward to going to Washington on August 4th to celebrate with the president. It'll be pretty hot stuff.
Very exciting stuff.
Very exciting stuff.
As we draw closer to this event, this you are a business owner in the city, and there's always red tape to go through, shall we say. What was it like working with the city to get this done? Were there difficulties? There always are, right?
Sean, I got to tell you, nobody has been opened their arms more to us than the city of New London. They gave us the land. They approved all of our design concepts. We've had public hearings. Everybody has been incredibly gracious, I could not thank the city more for their acceptance of this concept. I think everybody understands and realizes that we got to change the traffic patterns downtown.
Right, and there always seems to be construction. I think they're finally done with the construction.
I think so. Yeah, exactly. But as I say, we've been very appreciative of Mayor Finizio's approach to this whole thing. He's been very supportive all the way through. So we are very blessed to have the city of New London be so supportive.
What do you do when you have to go through different mayors? Their time seems to be shorter than when you started out at 98. Is it almost like you sort of have to represent yourself all over again every time?
I think you always have to make friends. You have to. You can't not have friends in government. I mean, because government is such an important part of our lives these days. So, whether the mayor is going to run again or not is a question. Who's going to be elected is always a question. But we've made sure that we have support all the way across the aisle and on both sides of the party.
Are there people? What are their arguments against? Like, cost too much, tax issues, traffic congestion.
It's traffic issues, and then we understand those issues. The city of New London should be so happy to have
right.
Have
that just means
like
more
that.
people are coming, right?
Exactly.
Spending money in your town.
Exactly. But I think that there was a lot of talk when we were going down to Fort Trumbull. There was a lot of talk. People were opposed to us going to Fort Trumbull. So you're always going to have the naysayers, and we try to deal with them, and but even some of the most outspoken critics, I think, have come along with us and realized what good the site is that we have.
What about parking? I mean, I know there's a parking garage that'll be right across the street. Well, obviously, that'll be utilized more.
Yeah, it's a 1,000 car lot. It's the city leases it to a private entity, and I think, but there is space. We've already begun to look at space where we could put a parking structure on that would be right and adjacent to that. So,
and was there a difficulty negotiating with the ferry that would, and how easy or difficult would be for them to relocate so that the museum will be
not
there?
At all. I mean, the ferry people have become our great friends. Have become great friends. They have always been good friends. They are seeing that. That this is going to be an added attraction for New London, and will bring more business to the ferries coming across from Long Island, obviously, and all the rest of it. So, they're great friends, and we're very pleased to be involved with the Ranowskis.
When this thing is up and running, how far out do you expect to draw from for this? Obviously, like state-wise, trips.
Sean, this is a national museum. This is a national museum. There's no reason why we won't draw from Alaska, from Hawaii, because there's a huge contingent of the population in Alaska that is involved with the Coast Guard, either as retired Coast Guardsmen or whatever. We'll attract people from Alaska. We'll attract people from Hawaii. All of it. So this is a national deal. New London needs to understand that this is not a regional museum.
Right.
It is a national museum.
I mean, I could see even the Groton New London Airport getting more traffic and service because of this.
Without question. Without question. You're absolutely right. The ripple effect from something like this is huge, and you hit it right on the head. There is no reason why that airport shouldn't be more utilized. And
It's underutilized now for sure.
Terribly underutilized. Yeah. But in defense of the governor, he has set up a whole new airport commission, and they're addressing this. And this will be the incentive to bring in more commercial airlines.
I also think that this could, domino into other events in the vein of the op sales in downtown. It's just one big mecca gathering place where the museum will be one more very big thing in the grand scheme to go and check out and be a part of when you're coming to the area, to the region for the summer, to check out other events like the op sale, like Sail Fest, or even things in other towns.
So true, and you know what our vision is, Sean, and I've had this vision for a while, having been involved in Upsale, is that when we open in 2018 or maybe 2019, I would like to stage a tall ship event or an Upsale event in New London, where the entire sailing community, the international sailing community, comes and helps us snip the ribbon for the.
See, that's how you're thinking about the building, so to speak, isn't even up yet, but you're already thinking about ancillary things that can be going along with it, just to make the event that much more grand.
Make it that much more grand, and as I said before, this is a national museum that will attract international visitors, I think.
Talk about this. Gets me thinking about you and your past and your history long before op sale. Talk about how, because you've got nautical somehow in your veins and your blood. How did it all start out for you?
Well,
go back as far as you want.
Oh, jeez, that's pretty far back. It's, being 76
Not to
years.
like the covered wagons or anything
Yeah,
like
right.
that.
Being 76 years old, Sean. No, I graduated from Mamaroneck High School down in Westchester County, and went off to Tufts and got my degree in 4 years, and graduated in '61 from Tufts, and went and between my when I graduated from Tufts, I went down and went to work on the waterfront in Baltimore for a shipping company. My parents had always been saltwater type people, and we always had boats, and went to graduate school, and ended up going to work for Citibank and in their overseas division, and that didn't seem to work out so good.
You're not a banker.
No,
You
I'm
got
not
salt water in your blood.
So I, with a partner and my brother-in-law, we founded together the Brewer Yacht Yard Systems, which is now a 23-unit chain throughout New England, taking care of boats, yachts, and general boats. And I when I left the partnership in 1993, I think it was. I've stayed always stayed in the marine business. I've done my whole life has been, my whole living in my life has been made on the waterfront. So
Yeah.
I'm very proud of it.
And all those things only the few things that we mentioned, op sale, and now the Coast Guard Museum Association, it all had to do with being on the waterfront, something to do with the sea, the Navy, something,
Sean, it's an admirable way to make a living. Working on the waterfront, working around boats, working with people who love the sea. It's a wonderful way to make a living. You make the best friends in the world. And the Coast Guard, they are the best. I mean, the Coast Guard men and women are some of the finest people I've ever met in my life.
When you're going through this whole process that you've started from '98 to now, how much was the Academy involved at all in the process, or were they?
No, they really weren't involved. They have a mission to educate. They're
a school.
They're a school.
Yeah.
They're a school, and they have their own funding problems. They have their own needs. So they now are 100% on board, and and it's great. We have meetings up at the alumni hall and all the rest of the stuff. They're very much of a partner now. But in the early stages, they had their own they had their own issues.
You think there's a chance that when you're up and running, and whoever the president is at the time, when they come to New London for the commencement speech for the Coast Guard Academy, that they could swing down and just kind of see?
I can't imagine that any president or vice president wouldn't do that. I'm sure that they will do that. This is we've got conference centers planned. We've got places where people can come for international conferences. Admiral Papp and Admiral Loy, both of who are on our board, both of them have these tremendous visions of where the uniformed service will use it. Will use it in addition to the public coming. The uniformed service will use it for conferences, for Homeland Security, and all the rest of it. So,
all right,
it'll be something.
Let's take one more break and come right back. I'm Sean Murphy with John Johnson, treasurer of the National Coast Guard Museum Association. Stay there. We're right back. So that is just about our show for today. But real quick, though, when you're talking about a nonprofit, funding is always an issue. So I want to give you just a moment to talk about that briefly.
Sure. You know, our website is probably the best way to figure out how to donate. The website is www.coastguardmuseum.org. We have lots of different societies to join. We're celebrating this year the 225th anniversary of the Coast Guard. So we have a campaign for $225 donation to celebrate that anniversary.
And again, remember, when this thing is up and running, it's free. It's free for
free to the public. Free to the public. Welcome the public with open arms.
What's on the website for people to see?
There is our anthology, where we have been in the past 2 years. It have all the renderings of how the museum's going to look. It is a very, very active website that gets changed weekly.
All right. John Johnson, treasurer of the National Coast Guard Museum Association. Hope you come back just as soon as you get closer to doing the grand unveiling of this thing. It'd be great to have you.
Can't wait to come back, Sean.
All right. You can see this show and many others on our YouTube site. Until next time, I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Take care.